Hi, I'm Raven Canada, and I'm here to talk to you today about the Virginia Indians. So imagine if your family was torn apart by the color of their skin. Brown paper bags used to be used to determine what race you were. So if you were white, if you were lighter than the brown paper bag, you were considered white. And if you were darker than the brown paper bag, you were considered colored. So today, most people know the story of Pocahontas and John Smith and how the Virginia tribes helped the first English settlers in North America survive. But how many of you know that the descendants of Pocahontas are not recognized by the federal government? I am a Native American. I'm on the board of directors for a nonprofit organization called NAV, Native American Advocates Against All Violence. I am here today to spread the word of the unfair treatment of Virginia tribes and to persuade Congress to grant us federal recognition. I would like to validate this statement by discussing the unfair treatment of Virginia Indians and how they still struggle to gain federal recognition because of the documentation needed to prove Native heritage, and that a solution should be based on a godly view of the liberation of the wrongly oppressed people and give them the justice they deserve. Let's take a closer look at what happened. Virginia's travesty of injustice continues to be a problem with detrimental effects. The Racial Integrity Act of 1924 recognized only two races, white and colored. This act required that racial description of every person born was recorded at birth. It also made marriages between white persons and non-white persons a felony. This act was subject to the Pocahontas exception. Legislature declared that a person could be considered white with as much as 1/16 Indian ancestry in them. This information can be found in the battles in red, white, and black. Under the guidance of State Register of Vital Statistics Walter Plecker, who held this position over 30 years, he attempted to destroy, change all birth, death, and marriage records that had been recorded before the 1924 law. He threatened officials with legal action, 1 year in prison, and fear of losing their jobs if they did not comply with his wishes. However, if they documented them the way he wanted, he would pay them all extra, which came out of the state budget. This can be found in the clerk's correspondence with Walter Plecker at the Library of Virginia. This brings me to my second point. Today, the Virginia tribes still face many struggles ahead in order to get Congress to acknowledge federal recognition. In 1982, the 8 tribes in Virginia petitioned the General Assembly for state recognition. They ordered a study on history of these tribes to determine the validity of their claims to Indian heritage. Dr. Helen Roundtree, professor at Old Dominion University and author of many books on the Powhatan history, conducted the research and concluded that we are the successors to the historical ancestors of the 17th century tribes. In 1997, Governor George Allen allowed the people to make corrections on their birth certificates 50 years after the death of Walter Plecker. The state publicly apologized to Virginia Indians for Plecker's attempts to wipe out their race. In 1999, the General Assembly passed a resolution asking Congress to grant federal acknowledgement to the Virginia tribes. Plecker's policies were successful in oppressing tribal people, and the effects are still felt today because the very records that we now need in order to receive federal recognition have been changed or destroyed. This brings me to my final point. There are many benefits to receiving federal recognition that will help our tribes. Federal recognition brings status and access to certain benefits. It would open many doors such as grants, scholarships, education, housing, and health care for our elders. There's also a certain amount of money set aside for federally recognized tribes, so it would not be an additional cost to the taxpayers. This can be found in the Indian Country Medianetwork.com. It is also a matter of pride to do something for our grandparents and parents who suffered so many prejudices. This brings me to my conclusion. I have made you aware of the unfair treatment of Virginia Indians. Then I discussed some of the struggles that we're still facing today. And last, I explained the benefits of receiving federal recognition. Please encourage Congress to federally recognize the Virginia Indians this year. The state of Virginia finally recognizes the grave injustices our people have suffered here and the desire to rectify the damage done to us. as stated by Chief Ann Richardson of the Rappahannock Tribe to the United States House of Representatives on September 9, 2002. She stated, "I do not see this bill as one of recognition versus non-recognition, but rather one of justice versus injustices. The Congress of the United States has the power and has been asked by the state of Virginia to help bring justice to Virginia Indians. I am asking you to help bring healing to its people by passing the bill this year." Please take notice that her speech to the House of Representatives was over 11 years ago. We are still trying to get federal recognition. It is time now for Congress to pass this bill this year and give Virginia Indians the recognition that we deserve. Thank you.